Let me make something absolutely clear right from the start. You were not put on this earth to shrink for the comfort of others. You are not here to live a watered-down version of your potential so the world doesn't feel insecure about your greatness. Listen to me. This life is yours, not theirs. Not theirs to judge, not theirs to dictate, not theirs to define. So why are you still trying to impress people who aren't even paying attention? Why are you dimming your light for people who would rather sit in the dark than grow beside you? You were not born to shrink. You weren't created to play small, to hide your voice, or to dim your light so that others don't feel insecure around you. Somewhere along the way, you were convinced that shrinking yourself would keep you safe. Safe from criticism, safe from judgment, safe from failure. But the truth is, that kind of safety comes at a high cost. Every time you silence your ambition, you betray the greatness inside you that's waiting to be unleashed. Maybe it started when someone told you to be realistic. Maybe they laughed at your dream or said you were too much, too loud, too confident. So you started to pull back, editing yourself to fit into boxes that were never meant for you. You began to measure your worth by their standards, and in doing so, you started to forget who you really are. But shrinking doesn't make you more accepted, it makes you more invisible. And the world doesn't need another copy. It needs your full, unfiltered, unapologetic truth. You see, there is nothing noble about playing small. It doesn't make you humble, it makes you hidden. And when you hide, you rob others of the gift of your presence, your insight, your unique contribution. You weren't born to fit into molds made by people too afraid to chase their own potential. You were born to break molds, set new standards, and redefine what's possible through the way you live, speak, create, and show up. When you shrink, you abandon your assignment. That calling on your life, the one that keeps tugging at you, no matter how many times you try to ignore it, isn't going to leave you alone because it's yours. It was placed inside you before the world had a chance to tell you what you couldn't be. And every time you try to blend in, to shrink down, that calling grows louder. It doesn't care about their opinions. It only cares that you answer. You were not built to tiptoe through life hoping not to ruffle feathers. The truth is, if you're going to do anything that matters, someone will be uncomfortable. But that's not your problem. Let them adjust. You've spent enough time adjusting for everyone else. Shrinking has never brought you peace, only frustration. And deep down, you know it. You've felt the ache of playing beneath your capacity and the weight of dreams deferred. There's power in showing up fully, in being all of who you are without apology. That kind of presence doesn't come from ego, it comes from alignment. When you know who you are and you stop shrinking, you walk different. You speak with clarity, you move with intention, and people notice. Some will be inspired, some will be intimidated, but none will be able to ignore you because greatness never whispers, it echoes. And let's be honest. You're tired of pretending, tired of dimming your ideas, softening your voice, holding back your brilliance. It's exhausting to live a life filtered through fear. That's not living, that's surviving. And you were not born just to survive. You were born to impact, to lead, to create, to inspire. But none of that can happen while you're hiding behind a version of yourself built for their comfort. Your birthright is expansion. That means stretching, rising, evolving, and becoming more of who you really are, not less. You were born with vision, with fire, with potential that can't be contained in a box labeled average. So stop negotiating with smallness. Stop asking for permission to be powerful. You were never meant to shrink. You were meant to rise. This life is yours, not theirs. You are the one who wakes up with your thoughts, carries your experiences, and lives with your choices. No one else walks in your shoes. No one else knows the weight of your dreams, the fire behind your decisions, or the silent battles you fight when no one is watching. Yet, so many people live as if their life belongs to the crowd, constantly adjusting, performing, and compromising to meet the expectations of others who don't even fully understand them. Somewhere along the line, you were taught to value other people's opinions over your own voice. Maybe it was family, maybe it was school, maybe it was society convincing you that your worth was based on how well you could conform. And so you learned to second guess your instincts. You learned to doubt your desires. You started making choices not based on what you wanted, but on what would make you look good to other people. But the problem with that is when you live for them, you lose you. You don't owe anyone your dreams. You don't owe anyone your potential. You don't have to justify your path, your passion, or your purpose. This life was given to you, and nobody else has the right to dictate how you use it. The people who try to control you are often the ones who never had the courage to take control of their own lives. They want to live through you, speak through you, direct you, but they won't be the ones dealing with the regret if you end up unfulfilled. There are people who will cheer for you as long as you don't outgrow the version of you they're comfortable with. The moment you start choosing yourself, your growth, your healing, your goals, some will fall away. Let them. You weren't put here to carry dead weight. You weren't made to bend yourself into a version that makes others feel secure. The truth is, when you live by their rules, you'll always be one decision away from losing yourself, and you're too valuable to waste your one life performing for a crowd that keeps changing its standards. When you stop living for them, you start to hear yourself again. You start to trust your gut. You begin to move with clarity, not confusion. And for the first time, your actions start aligning with your truth instead of their expectations. It feels unfamiliar at first, even scary, because the noise of the crowd has drowned out your inner voice for so long. But once you begin choosing yourself, you'll wonder how you ever lived any other way. This life of yours was never meant to be a sacrifice on the altar of other people's approval. That job you're in, that degree they pushed on you, that relationship you stayed in out of fear, none of those things define you. They were choices, maybe even survival mechanisms, but they don't have to be permanent prisons. You have the authority to rewrite your story. The same voice you silence to please others is the one that can lead you into your breakthrough. There's no blueprint for your life that someone else can hand you. You are the architect. You are the builder. You are the author. People can offer advice, give support, even walk alongside you, but they don't get to hold the pen. They don't get to write your chapters because they don't live with the consequences of the story. You do. And when it's all said and done, it's not their opinions that will echo in your heart. It's the question of whether or not you honored what was inside you. So you have to decide, will you keep molding your life to fit a version that pleases everyone else? Or will you take ownership of your journey and walk it with boldness? Every step you take to reclaim your life will feel like rebellion to someone, but to you, it will feel like freedom. Validation is a trap. It starts small, a compliment here, a like there, a nod of approval from someone you respect. It feels good, maybe even addictive, and before you know it, your worth is no longer something you carry from within. It becomes something you chase. You start living in a cycle where everything you do is filtered through one question: will they approve? You stop making decisions based on purpose and start making them based on perception. That's how the trap tightens, slowly, subtly, and deeply. The danger with validation is that it shifts your focus from expression to performance. You begin curating your life instead of living it. You say what sounds good, do what looks good, and become who they'll accept, not who you truly are. The more validation you receive, the more afraid you become of losing it. You start guarding an identity that doesn't even belong to you, fearing that any deviation from the script will lead to rejection. And in that fear, you shrink, you settle, you stay stuck. The need for validation makes you dependent. You become addicted to external affirmation to feel secure. So every compliment lifts you and every critique crushes you. You give away the power to define yourself. You hand it over to people who might not even know you, people who judge based on snapshots, not your full story. And in doing so, you lose touch with your internal compass. You become a mirror always reflecting what others want to see instead of being a light shining from within. At its core, validation seeking is a form of self-abandonment. You begin to override your intuition, ignore your desires, and betray your convictions, all to earn applause that fades the moment you stop performing. You sacrifice peace for praise. You give up authenticity for attention. And the more you do it, the emptier it feels, because deep down, you know that nothing real can come from pretending. You can't build a fulfilling life on a foundation of false acceptance. The irony is that even when you get the validation you crave, it never feels like enough. That's because external approval is a moving target. Today they love you, tomorrow they question you. One moment you're celebrated, the next you're criticized. Living for validation keeps you running in circles, never truly grounded. It's like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. And slowly it depletes you. Your energy, your identity, your joy, all drained trying to impress people who may never even understand you. People's opinions are fickle. One small shift in your choices or circumstances, and the very people who praise you can turn their backs. If your confidence is built on their approval, then your sense of self will always be at risk. But that's the trap. It lures you in with praise and holds you hostage with fear. You stop creating for purpose and start performing for claps. But validation should be a bonus, not the goal. And when it becomes the goal, you lose yourself. What you really want is not to be validated, it's to be seen, known, and accepted. But none of that can truly happen if you're constantly showing a filtered version of yourself. The real version of you, the bold, flawed, passionate, evolving you, can't breathe in a space where approval is a requirement for love. The moment you realize that, you begin to detach from the need for validation and anchor yourself in self-worth. And that shift, that's where your power begins. It's not that you'll never care what people think, it's that their opinions no longer control you. You stop letting applause dictate your direction. You start living from alignment instead of performance. You stop waiting for permission to be great and realize you've had the authority all along. Validation is the trap, but self-trust is the key. Your growth will make others uncomfortable, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your evolution forces them to confront their own stagnation. The moment you begin to stretch, shift, and rise, you become a mirror reflecting everything they haven't done, everything they were too afraid to try, and everything they told themselves they couldn't become. And that reflection doesn't always inspire them. Sometimes it intimidates them. That's not your fault, but it will become your problem if you start shrinking to protect their comfort. When people see you changing, they may question your motives. They'll ask why you're different, why you're distant, why you don't laugh at the same jokes or entertain the same conversations. They may say you've changed like it's a betrayal, as if growth was supposed to be optional. But what they really mean is, I'm uncomfortable with the version of you I can't control. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer playing small. And for some, that's threatening because your growth disrupts the dynamic they've gotten used to. Not everyone will clap when you evolve. Some people will only attach to your old identity. They liked you better when you were unsure, when you needed them, when you stayed in your place. As long as you weren't challenging the limits they placed on you, things felt safe for them. But growth doesn't live in safety. It lives in disruption, in stretching, in the unknown. And when you begin to walk that path, expect resistance. Not because you're wrong, but because you're rising. There will be people who try to guilt you into staying the same. They'll say you've forgotten where you came from. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better than them. But the truth is, you didn't forget, you just refused to stay stuck. You stopped glorifying struggle. You stopped romanticizing survival. You realized that you were allowed to want more, and that wanting more didn't mean you were ungrateful. It meant you were aware of what you're capable of, and awareness is power. Growth often means outgrowing people, environments, and even belief systems. It's not always about cutting people off. Sometimes it's just about creating space for the new you to breathe. Not everyone can go with you, and that's okay. Elevation requires separation. The higher you go, the thinner the air gets, and not everyone is equipped to breathe at your new level. That's not judgment, that's reality. You're not responsible for carrying people who refuse to walk on their own. Don't be surprised when those closest to you are the ones who resist your growth the most. Familiarity creates expectation. They think they know who you are, and they don't want that version to change. But just because they've known you doesn't mean they truly see you. Growth reveals who's for your evolution and who's only for your convenience. And while it may hurt, it also frees you. It frees you to stop living for the comfort of others and start living in the calling that's been pulling on you for years. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You don't have to explain why. You're reading more, eating differently, choosing better, or distancing yourself from environments that no longer align with your future. The more you grow, the clearer your vision becomes. And when your vision gets clearer, your tolerance for mediocrity gets lower. What once satisfied you no longer does. What once distracted you no longer holds power. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them talk. Let them question. Because at the end of the day, you're not growing for applause, and you're not rising to make anyone else feel small. You're doing it because you finally realized your future is too important to keep waiting for everyone else to catch up. Purpose over ego. That's the shift that separates the ones who rise for a moment from the ones who rise and stay. Ego wants to be seen. It craves attention, recognition, validation. But purpose wants to serve. It moves differently. It's not chasing spotlight. It's creating impact. And when you start choosing purpose over ego, your entire life begins to align in a way that can't be shaken by applause or absence of it. You stop living for the image and you start living for the mission. Ego is loud. It needs to be heard. It constantly needs to prove itself to remind others how worthy and valuable it is. But the truth is, anything that constantly needs to be proven is usually standing on shaky ground. Purpose doesn't need to scream. Purpose stands firm. It doesn't get distracted by opinions, nor does it crumble under pressure. Purpose gives you endurance when ego would have given up. It gives you direction when ego is lost chasing relevance. When your ego is in control, your moves are emotional and reactive. You get caught up trying to outshine, trying to compete, trying to be the best in the room for the wrong reasons. But when you're driven by purpose, you're not worried about who's watching. You're focused on the mission. You understand that the goal isn't to look important. The goal is to be impactful. You realize that winning isn't about beating others. It's about becoming the highest version of yourself. Choosing purpose means sacrificing short-term praise for long-term fulfillment. It means you might not always get the credit. You might not get the applause, but you'll get results that matter. Ego will have you chasing viral moments. Purpose will have you building a legacy. Ego will make you say yes to every opportunity so you don't feel left out. Purpose will give you the wisdom to say no to what doesn't align, even if it looks shiny on the outside. The problem is, ego wants now, it's impatient, it's insecure, it constantly needs something external to feel internal peace. But purpose is patient. It's grounded in vision, not emotion. Purpose will have you working in silence for years while no one's watching, planting seeds that grow into something extraordinary later. And while ego is fighting for attention, purpose is building something that will outlast opinions, trends, and even your lifetime. When you lead with ego, you burn bridges to stay ahead. When you lead with purpose, you build bridges to bring others with you. That's the difference. Purpose isn't just about personal success. It's about collective elevation. It's about turning your pain into power, your lessons into light, and your experience into service. It's knowing that what you're building isn't just for you, it's for the people assigned to your voice, your work, your example. Ego sees other people as competition. Purpose sees them as collaboration. Ego isolates, purpose includes. When you're driven by purpose, you start asking different questions. It's no longer how do I win, it's how do I help? How do I serve? How do I make something that actually matters? And when that shift happens, your decisions become clearer, your motives become cleaner, and your progress becomes real, not just performative. Ego will have you exhausted trying to keep up a facade. Purpose will give you peace, even in the midst of pressure. Because when you're aligned with your purpose, you're no longer playing for likes or applause. You're playing for impact, for legacy, for meaning. And that kind of life can't be shaken by opinion, rejected by people, or stopped by circumstances. Discipline fuels destiny. It's not just a habit. It's the invisible engine behind everything you're trying to build. The dreams you have, the vision that keeps you up at night, the life you know deep down you're meant to live. None of that becomes real without discipline. Talent might get you noticed. Passion might give you a head start, but it's discipline that carries you through the days when motivation goes missing and everything in you wants to quit. Destiny isn't handed out, it's walked into, one consistent step at a time. Discipline isn't glamorous, it's not the highlight reel, and it rarely gets applause. It's early mornings, late nights, saying no when it's easier to say yes, and choosing what you want most over what you want right now. It's the repetition that builds resilience, the structure that creates strength. Most people are waiting for the perfect conditions before they start. But those who are chasing destiny understand the perfect conditions are created through consistent commitment, not convenience. When you lack discipline, even the most powerful vision will fade into frustration. You can be inspired, but if you don't have the structure to execute, you'll keep cycling through ideas without ever finishing anything. You'll be caught in the trap of starting strong and quitting early. That's where discipline comes in. It keeps you grounded when emotions fluctuate. It gives you the ability to push through boredom, resistance, and fatigue because your actions are tied to a bigger purpose, not just how you feel in the moment. Real discipline is a decision to become who you said you'd be, no matter what it costs. It requires you to master your impulses, to prioritize growth over gratification. It teaches you that everything you say yes to has a cost, and every yes to distraction is a no to destiny. Discipline is doing the work even when no one is watching, knowing that the reward isn't immediate, but it's inevitable if you stay consistent. People often confuse discipline with restriction. But discipline is actually freedom. It frees you from being controlled by emotions, by laziness, by inconsistency. It gives you authority over your time, your habits, your focus. It's the thing that allows you to look back months or years from now and see measurable, undeniable growth, not just in what you have, but in who you've become. It sharpens your character, shapes your mindset, and forges the kind of grit that doesn't fold under pressure. The difference between the people who dream and the people who deliver is discipline. Everyone has ideas. Everyone has moments of inspiration. But few are willing to do the hard, unsexy work day in and day out with no guaranteed reward in sight. Destiny doesn't respond to potential. It responds to preparation. And discipline is how you prepare, how you build the capacity to handle what you've been asking for. When you commit to discipline, you stop negotiating with excuses. You stop letting your circumstances decide your consistency. You understand that excellence isn't an act, it's a lifestyle. And over time, you begin to trust yourself on a deeper level because you've proven through action that you can follow through. That self-trust is a powerful byproduct of discipline. It gives you confidence that doesn't need to be hyped up because it's rooted in execution. Every breakthrough, every opportunity, every elevation you're believing for is connected to your willingness to be disciplined, not perfect, disciplined. Discipline doesn't mean you won't slip. It means you refuse to stay down. It means you keep showing up, keep refining, keep pushing. Because destiny isn't about one big moment. It's about 1,000 small decisions made with intention, stacked day after day until the results become undeniable. You're not here to prove them wrong, prove yourself right. The fire inside you was never meant to burn just for revenge or validation. It was meant to fuel something greater, something deeper than any critic or doubter could ever understand. Because proving them wrong might push you for a while, but proving yourself right will sustain you for a lifetime. It's not about silencing their voices. It's about finally listening to your own. The one that told you you're capable, chosen, called, and powerful long before anyone else believed it. When you live to prove people wrong, you end up tying your success to their disbelief. You start measuring your progress based on their reactions, not your growth. And in doing so, you hand over control of your journey to the very people who never saw your worth in the first place. That's a dangerous game, because the moment they stop doubting, or worse, stop paying attention, your drive starts to fade. But when you're fueled by proving yourself right, you keep going even when no one's watching, because the goal isn't to impress, it's to fulfill. There's a voice in you that has always known who you are, even when the world tried to convince you otherwise. It's the voice that spoke up when you were a kid with big dreams before fear, failure, and rejection tried to bury it. It's the voice that keeps showing up in quiet moments, reminding you that you were made for more. That voice doesn't shout. It doesn't demand applause. It simply waits for you to believe it again, to stop performing for proof and start building from purpose. You don't need a list of haters to be great. You don't need an audience of doubters to take action. You need a vision that's so clear, so real, that quitting feels like betrayal. Not to them, to you. Because you know what you've sacrificed. You know how many times you've had to start over. You know how long you've waited for this moment. And if you let outside opinions determine your direction, you'll keep chasing shadows instead of creating Proving yourself right is about honoring your intuition. It's about backing yourself with action when no one else is clapping. It's waking up every day with the conviction that you're on assignment, not for applause, but for alignment. You're building something with your name on it. And whether they see it or not, whether they get it or not, doesn't matter, because you see it, you feel it, you know that what you're doing is necessary. And that knowing is what separates those who try from those who become. There's a kind of peace that comes when you're no longer driven by bitterness or resentment. That peace is power. When you shift your focus inward, when you stop reacting to doubt and start responding to destiny, your energy changes. You stop being defensive and start being intentional. You stop waiting for people to believe in you and start showing up like you already believe in yourself. Because proving yourself right isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment with the truth that's been in you all along. And yes, it might take longer this way. It might not come with the loud fanfare or the dramatic "I told you so" moment, but it will come with fulfillment. It will come with the quiet, unshakable confidence of knowing you stayed true to your path, that you didn't bend to bitterness, you didn't shrink for approval, and you didn't lose yourself trying to win a race that was never yours to run. You chose you. You chose your voice, your pace, your purpose. Because when it's all said and done, it won't be their doubts that keep you up at night. It'll be the question of whether or not you believed in yourself enough to follow through. That's what proving yourself right is about. It's about deciding every day to back your own belief more than their disbelief, to trust your vision more than their critique, to build a life that speaks louder than any opinion ever could. Do it for you, not for their approval, not for the applause, not for the validation that fades as fast as it comes. Do it because there's a version of you deep down that knows you were made for more, that knows you've been holding back, second-guessing, dimming your light to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain you. The world will always have something to say, but at the end of the day, it's your reflection you have to face. And when the noise dies down, all that's left is whether you showed up for yourself or not. There's a power that comes when you finally stop performing, when you stop bending and contorting to make other people comfortable, when you stop chasing recognition and start chasing truth. You stop living to meet expectations and start creating based on conviction. You become aligned, not with trends, not with opinions, but with you, your heart, your calling, your voice. You stop asking for permission and start owning your presence, your space, your worth. That's not selfish, that's self-respect. Doing it for you doesn't mean doing it alone. It means doing it from a place of wholeness, not emptiness. It means you're no longer hustling for identity, you're building from it. You're not hoping your achievements will make you feel enough. You know you're already enough, and everything you build is just an extension of that truth. You show up with clarity, with focus, and with the kind of energy that can't be shaken by rejection or inflated by praise, because your foundation is internal, not circumstantial. When you do it for them, You'll always feel the pressure to prove. You'll fear falling because their approval is the only thing holding you up. But when you do it for you, you give yourself permission to fail forward. You stop fearing mistakes and start learning from them. You begin to see growth, not as a straight line, but as a personal evolution and real. You stop treating yourself like a project to fix and start treating yourself like a person to honor. There's no peace in a life lived for performance. There's no rest in constantly wondering if you're good enough for them. When you chase their version of success, you lose your definition of fulfillment. You wake up feeling disconnected, like you're living someone else's story. But when you shift your focus inward, everything begins to align. You start trusting your instincts. You start creating from authenticity, not anxiety. And the life you build starts to feel like home, not a stage. People will come and go. Their opinions will change. Their praise will shift. But the relationship you have with yourself, that's the one that carries everything. It's the one that decides how you show up, how you lead, how you heal, how you win. Doing it for you means nurturing that relationship, protecting your peace, and prioritizing your growth. It means being honest about your needs and unafraid to pursue what lights you up, even if no one else gets it yet. I think there's a difference between living to be seen and living from being seen. Seen by yourself. When you finally recognize your own value, your decisions change. You don't settle. You don't chase. You don't shrink. You choose environments that support your evolution. You say no to what drains you and yes to what develops you. You stop trying to earn your place and start standing in it unapologetically. Because the moment you begin to take yourself seriously, the world around you begins to shift. You were not created to live on the sidelines of your own life. You weren't born to constantly wonder what everyone else thinks before you move. Doing it for you means reclaiming your time, your energy, your power. It means trusting that your desires are not random. They are reminders of who you are and what you're here to do. It means showing up not to be impressive, but to be authentic, to live out loud without compromise, to move with clarity, to choose you fully and finally,